following podcast is sponsored in part by the Blue Ridge Institute for Theological Education and Birmingham Theological Seminary. For more information about these institutions, please visit their websites at bright-va.org. That's brite-va.org or bts.education. And now, here is Larger for Life, a podcast on the Westminster Larger Catechism.
Welcome back, listeners. It is one of your favorite co-hosts, Matt Adams, and we are back for a new episode of Larger for Life. Of course, if you listened to us last week, you'll remember that we gave just really a brief overview on question 145, discussing what are the sins forbidden in the ninth commandment. And really on a fly, we decided that we would have an episode solely to discuss this very lengthy question and answer that's found for us in the Larger Catechism. We actually believe that we're correct when we say this. This is the longest question and answer in the Larger Catechism itself. We have a ton of material to work from. And even though we gave that overview as we concluded our episode last week, we wanted to just simply take some time and plod through this question and answer together, thinking about the importance of the ninth commandment, talking about how God's people are people who love the truth because God is the truth. But we particularly need to think about the sins forbidden in the ninth commandment so that we might be aware of the totality or the comprehensiveness that the law brings when it comes to truth telling or promoting the truth in the Christian life. But before we do so, let me introduce you to, or acknowledge, by now I hope you know the co-hosts, but we have our regular gambit here of guys. We got Sean Morris up in Tennessee and Derek Bright in Alabama. And if you thought, listeners, that Spin and Weber being back for last week's episode brought him back on some sort of permanent basis, you were wrong, because he's not here. The excuse that we had all summer was he was on the longest sabbatical known to man. And it began to cause us to even question or whether or not he was fired from his call there in Jacksonville, Florida. Still not convinced that he wasn't, even though they let him preach last Lord's Day. But guest ministers are a thing in the PCA.
It might have been an act of charity. See, here's what I think. Spin's such a nice guy. I don't know that he could ever get fired. He's so nice. I just question whether he actually was ever called and ordained in the first place.
Yeah, they were just like,
It's like that episode of Seinfeld when Kramer just shows up to the company and pretends to work there, and after it takes weeks until the boss finally gets wind of this and has to sit down with them and says, "We need to let you go," and Kramer goes, "But I don't even really work here." That's what makes this so difficult.
Yeah, his ordination is as fake as that mustache.
Well, the excuse that we had today that he couldn't be with us, speaking of fake, is that he had to take his daughter to the dentist. And we've let the cat out the bag for our listeners. Mm-hmm. Spin is really not married, and he doesn't have any children. He has this rent-a-family that he takes Christmas card pictures with. Mm-hmm. He visited me and my family in Dillon, and he had to pay his rent-a-wife some overtime. Mm-hmm. I talked to the law enforcement here in Dillon and was questioning some, child employment occupation laws.
But child labor laws, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, we're South Carolina, so, freedom rings, buddy, as soon as you cross the state line. And so there's really nothing they could charge him with, but he is on their radar. I'll just go ahead and put it that way. But that is commitment, guys. I mean, to think about, you pay this wife and these children, and I do believe that they're actually hers. But you rent them, right?
That's right.
But you still volunteer yourself to take them to the dentist appointments. It goes back to his niceness, doesn't it? I mean, he's just a genuinely nice guy. He probably is developing some sort of affections for this family. It's just the fact that they're not his. But
The
Maybe
fact that he will, I don't know, he pays for them to pose with him for his annual photo shoots. But apparently, when the sweet lady, is in a pinch with her time, she can buzz him on the phone and say, "Hey, I need you to run so and so to the dentist," and he'll do it. I mean, what a chap, what an affable chap.
Well, I mean, if she was, she probably has an agent at this point. Spin's been renting her for so long. It might have just got worked into the 2025 contract. I mean, that would have been super wise on her part.
I mean, Spin is very budget conscious. He loves a good goodwill hunt. So he might have negotiated this in terms of, all right, we've been paying X dollars per year for you to come and pose in these Christmas card photo shoots with me. I want to lower the price, but in exchange, I'll do cab service for the kids. If you need me to take them somewhere, I'll shuttle them around. But let's negotiate the annual photo shoot price a little bit lower.
Here's a fact that I know about the contract. That might have been a fair trade. We'll lower the price, but you have to taxi my kids around.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that was taken out of the contract is his rental wife's, responsibility to act like she was really impressed with all of his compact disc finds at Goodwill. If you've never ridden in a car with Spin, it's like going back to the late 1990s. He has that huge zipper folder of CDs.
Yes.
And like the whole back, like 5, pages of this CD holder is like mixed, things that he ripped off of Napster.
Uh-huh.
I mean, God, what a guy. I mean,
what a guy.
I miss him when he's not on the episodes. Oh,
I mean, I wouldn't go that far, but
I just violated the 9th commandment.
That's right. But in as much as the whole family is a farce,
he's good entertainment. How about that?
He is good entertainment, but I think I don't think he was fired. I just think the whole notion of him being gainfully employed, I think that was a farce to begin with. That's my hunch.
And they're just finally, like, the session after years now are going like, guys, we've got to tell him he's not our pastor.
Buddy, you don't even really work here.
He's showing up to preach. He's showing up to hospital visits. He's offering his services in counseling. I mean, it's just gone a little overboard,
That's right.
And now that he's published this book, I mean, it's just gotten worse, So
eventually, you got to do the right thing. You want to let a guy down gently, but you got to hit him with the cold hard truth one of these days.
Enough's enough. That's for sure. Anyway, now that we've talked about Spin, we probably should jump into the 9th commandment. I've already said that we have a ton of material to get through. Sean, do you want to kind of say your final words and then get us into the question, and we'll dive in?
I can do that.
Okay. Before we get into anything else, I've got something on my heart that we need. We joke a lot on this show, and some of you like it, some of you don't. Some of you fast forward, and that's okay. If you've been fast forwarding and you're looking for the time we get serious, it is now. I'm being dead serious when I say this. I got to get this off my chest. Part of the duties required, according to the Larger Catechism, part of the duties required in the 9th commandment is the preserving and promoting of truth between man and man, and standing for the truth. And we want to abhor falsehood and all things that are terrible. So we need to talk about Taylor Swift's new album. Guys, we all like to comment, and I get text messages and emails and people stopping me at General Assembly and all that, asking me why I like Taylor Swift. For the record, there were 2 of her albums that I really did like and still do. But this new album is one of the most horrific, terrible, just wicked things. And you cannot let your kids listen to it. It's just awful. It's awful. It's perverted. It's grotesque. It's childish. God hates it. And I hate it too. And so I just wanted to get that off my chest. Tay has fallen on hard times, and I think I'm going to have to remove the Swifty label from my profile.
I think
No Taylor
Okay, guys,
Swift Advent candle or Advent calendar, not candle.
No, I still
Taylor
use that. I mean,
I think it's fair to say.
that was pre.
That was
new
pre-fall.
I don't know.
Pre-fall.
I think it's fair to say that Derek and Taylor are never, ever, ever getting back together.
Yeah, that's right. This time, she really is the problem.
She very
She
much
really
is the
is.
problem. Yes, she is the
And
problem.
I'm gonna have to shake this one off.
Yes, you are.
So
I mean, she did say that loving her was red, right? And so your face was red as fire.
yeah.
When you heard about this new album coming out.
Well, I actually didn't
Just
hear much
sheer
about it.
anger.
I just knew because I have Spotify, so I saw the album cover and the name of the album, and I thought, oh, this probably isn't going to be good. I knew nothing about the lyrics. I listened to it the day it came out, before anything was written about it. I listened to it all the way through, and I remember just walking up to my wife and saying, "This is awful. I don't like it at all." And I prayed for her salvation, and then I respectfully declined her wedding invitation.
Mm.
I was respectful when I did it, but I did let her know that I would not be attending. I was going to officiate the wedding, but they have some Methodist female minister that is doing it. So sad day. She asked if I had a rainbow stole, and I do not. And so she said, well, can you just at least come as a guest, and maybe we'll have you pray for the meal? And I said, sure, I'll do that. And then she came out with some terrible songs on this terrible album, and I just said, I don't think it's good for my Christian witness to be there.
I understand. That's a hard man.
So you had to RSVP. You had to decline with regret.
A deep regret. I actually wrote in the word deep and put an arrow.
Did like the little arrow thing.
Yeah, I did a little arrow thing. It's a deep regret.
Deep regret.
So,
Man, it's been a hard week for our buddy.
it is.
Sean.
It is. I probably can't record today. I'm pretty depressed.
Well, there's nothing to help you get out of the slough of despondency, like talking about lying and bearing false witness and why we shouldn't do it. There's nothing more encouraging than that. So this will help, I think. I think this catechetical discussion will be just the boost you need to get back into the bright sunshine.
Yeah, he needs to get out of the slough of despair.
If you guys say so, I'll stick around and we'll see if it's the right medicine.
I think so. I believe in you, buddy. I think this will help. This is just what you need. This question and answer is long. So I'm going to suggest that we just read a little bit, talk a little bit, and then read a little bit more as we go along.
The whole question and answer will be in the show notes anyway, Sean.
It will.
So that's a wise suggestion. I'm all for it. Let's do it.
What are the sins forbidden in the ninth commandment? Question 145. And let's see here. What's a good pause point? Here we go. The sins forbidden in the ninth commandment are all prejudicing the truth and the good name of our neighbors, as well as our own, especially in public judicature, giving a false evidence, suborning false witnesses, wittingly appearing and pleading for an evil cause, outfacing and overbearing the truth, passing and just sentence, calling evil good and good evil, rewarding the wicked according to the work of the righteous, and the righteous according to the work of the wicked. I'll pause there because there's already some good stuff for us to chew on. It's interesting how the question starts in the legal realm, isn't it? Certainly everything connected with truth-telling and truth-bearing is covered and is encompassed in the ninth commandment. But right at the front end of 145 about the sins forbidden in the ninth commandment, the divines focus on things of a more legal nature, don't they? Because they're talking about giving a false witness, especially in public judicature. So we're talking courts, aren't we? We're talking a legal, public, formal circumstance, an environment. Giving a false witness, or suborning, like summoning a false witness. So I'm not telling the lie, but I know this guy's going to come here and sitting in the box, in the witness stand, and he's going to say something that's going to help make me look good. So I'm not telling the lie, but he's going to tell the lie for me. What? That's covered too. Don't do it. Suborning false witnesses, wittingly appearing and pleading for an evil cause. So maybe there's not an actual untruth or dishonesty that's being pronounced from your lips, but the divines are saying, but part of what's covered under the ninth commandment is if you are wittingly appearing to be in favor of, you're not doing this. You're not doing this unwittingly. You're conscious and cognizant of what you're doing. You're fully aware of what you're doing, and if you are appearing to be in favor of, or if you are pleading the cause of something evil, don't. That's a sin. That's a violation of the ninth commandment. Outfacing and overbearing the truth, passing unjust sentence. And then I skipped over earlier the good name of our neighbors as well as our own. So I focused for a few moments here on the more legal and courtly dimensions, thinking of bringing a false witness into court so that they can give testimony, or you giving testimony in a court to a truthful matter, and how that's very much covered about do not bear false witness. And when we think of witness and we think of testimony, even in our modern parlance, we tend to think of it in those judicatory, courtly senses, and that's certainly conjured up by the language of the ninth commandment of bearing false witness. But it covers so much more than that. So Matt or Derek, just from that first section, where do you want to take us now about prejudicing the truth or the good name of our neighbors, or where would you like to take it?
Well, Sean, I think that, one of the things that the Catechism is trying to draw out is not just that God is true, therefore his people will love the truth, but also that God is just, that righteousness and justice, I think it's Psalm 89, right? It says that righteousness and justice are the foundation of God's throne. And so justice scripturally is always paired with truthfulness or faithfulness. And so when the ninth commandment is telling us these sins that we must, forbid in our own lives and in our own Christian witness for the good of our neighbor and for the promotion of the truth, it's getting to the very fact that there is no justice apart from the truth. And that's, we have so many real life illustrations here when it comes to something like a courtroom. You swear, you take an oath upon the Bible, at least still here in South Carolina.
Yeah.
You take an oath upon the Bible that everything you say will be true, even when you're selected for a juror, to be a jury, a juror. You have to go through this lengthy questionnaire about how past circumstances or situations or past experiences won't hinder you from seeking out the truth and seeking out justice. It asks you things like, well, what about your system of beliefs? Will that influence your pursuit of the truth and justice? And so we know something about what the Catechism is trying to get to. And if you think back to 144, it says that the ninth commandment requires appearing and standing for the truth and from the heart, sincerely, freely, clearly, and fully speaking in truth, judgment, and justice. And so, rightly so, now 145 comes in and condemns withholding justice based upon a lie. And so, we can go to a ton of biblical narratives and illustrations of this. But you think about the way that justice and truth are so tied together, so bound together, because when truth is suppressed or manipulated, those who are weak and helpless, those who have been falsely condemned, they're crushed. But at the very same time, those who have committed a crime could be found not guilty and set free. And so a community cannot endure, they cannot endure if truthfulness is not tied to justice, because justice is unreliable. I was reading some Jay Duma on his commentary of the Ten Commandments, and he says something along the lines of, he's talking about this judicial language. He says, imagine a courtroom without truth. It's not a real courtroom, but a theater of injustice. And so justice and truth can never be divorced from one another.
Yeah, and going back to the good name of ourselves and of our neighbor, I think a lot of this has to do with the divine's understanding and what should be our understanding of us as people bearing the image of God. And Matt, you've got me thinking on this because you've written a few helpful blog articles here in the recent past about the Imago Dei and the image of God. And so, there's a parallel there, isn't there, in as much as the name of God in the Bible is representative for all that God is, his character, his attributes, his being, his works, his deeds. The name of God is representative of him and stands in as a reputation of him. Well, so too with the name of people, because we are image bearers of God. We bear God's image, and so like his name represents him, our name represents us. Our name is our reputation. So we have a duty to uphold the good name of ourselves and our neighbors. That's a matter of truthfulness. That's a matter of honor. That's a matter of giving due respect to God, to image bearers of God. It's a reflection of the honor that we give God, and that his name is truth, and that his reputation is truth, and we reflect that derivatively, of course, not to the same degree, but as people who bear his image, we bear truthfulness, and therefore we have a reputation to protect and a reputation that's worth promoting, and we want to esteem our neighbors and protect their reputation and make sure that we're not entertaining lies about them, that we're not spreading lies about them, that we're not marring their name or their reputation, that we're not allowing that to happen regarding ourselves either. And the other thing that came to mind, and maybe there's further things that to mention there, but an outfacing and overbearing of the truth. I love what Voss says on this one. He says, these expressions mean a stubborn, persistent, perverse effort to oppose and defeat what a person knows in his heart and conscience is really the truth. Such stubborn opposition to the truth often arises from a deep prejudice against the person or institution that is standing up for the truth. So in other words, let's pretend you're having an argument or a debate with somebody, and in your heart of hearts, you know that what the other person is saying is the fact, is the truth, is the reality, but you just don't like it. And so you try to overwhelm them with rhetorical flourishes and maybe some logical creativity, and you try to just overwhelm them and sway the audience to your side by various anecdotes or impressive flourish or impressive rhetoric, whatever skill of speech you might have. But in your heart of hearts, you know that what they're saying is the truth, and you're just trying to bury it with a bunch of red herrings and distractions in order that the crowd won't take his side. They'll take your side instead because you're trying to bury the reality. That's an outfacing and overbearing of the truth. Maybe the other guy is a weaker debater. Maybe he's not as polished as a presenter. Maybe they're not as eloquent in speech. And so you're taking advantage of that in order to bury the truth beneath a mountain of your own skill sets. And God is not pleased with such a thing. When the truth is being concealed, buried, disclosed, or undisclosed and concealed, I should say, all such conduct, Voss says, is outfacing and overbearing the truth and is, as he says, very wicked and displeasing to God. Anything that we do to obfuscate the truth and to obfuscate and hamper a wider appreciation of the truth is a wicked thing. That's some serious things to think about. Calling good evil and evil good, he says. There's a big one for our day. Boy, don't we have that all over the place. Oh, there's Oh, there's all kinds of examples we could give, whether it's the LGBT sexual revolution transgender nightmare, right? Where people are right, they're being dishonest about their own sexual identity. I'm a man. I was born a man, but now I'm a woman. Well, that's a lie. But then we have whole fields of psychology and government institutions and public institutions that are rallying around that, saying, "No, this is good. This is who you are. You may have been born a man. You may have been told you've been born a man, but now you're a woman, and we're going to celebrate that. Isn't this wonderful? You're being your truest, fullest, healthiest self." That is a lie. That is a lie. But it's so good for you to be your real self. That is a lie. We're calling evil good. And the Catechism is telling. That's just one easy example for the 21st century, isn't it? I'm sure there's lots of other examples we could give, but it is a lie, calling good evil and evil good. And the Catechism is very clear on that. He says, this is Voss, whatever breaks down the distinction between right and wrong is a practical denial of the righteous character of God. Right? Because here's the thing, God is a God of truth, isn't he? Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. So this attribute of God, his truthfulness, if we oppose truth in any way, we are opposing an attribute of God himself, and we are denigrating his character in our own pathetic little mortal way, giving an assault against the character of God when we're promoting any kind of lie or any kind of untruth. This is a serious thing.
Yeah, Sean, I think that, I think it would be beneficial for our listeners for us to address the way in which, you were talking about the LGBTQIA plus agenda. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I even think about something like the sin of abortion that is so rampant within our own nation as well. You have to be very careful, because the way in which our culture and our society and government officials and organizations and such, they'll use language to bury the lies that they are telling. Yes. And so you think about the ways in which some government officials, some politicians talk about abortion. They won't even call it abortion many times now, because aborting a baby has a negative consequence, right? It has a negative connotation that they want to divorce their positions from, and so they'll talk about stuff like woman's health or health care for women.
We live in the age of wicked euphemism, don't we?
Right. Yeah. And that's not just a problem culturally. It's a problem within the church too. I mean, you begin to think about churches and denominations that have fallen into liberalism. They'll use some language that at first you think they're saying maybe the same thing that we're saying. One example that I've heard in recent memory is I was listening to a pastor talk about the Word of God, and he kept talking about how inspiring it is. It's so inspiring, isn't it? How inspiring is this story? Mm-hmm. But he purposely was changing inspired, meaning inspired by the Holy Spirit, written by God himself, right, and saying that this is an inspiring book. Or there's a lot of truth in our Bible. Not that our Bible is true. Mm-hmm. And so they're changing the way in which they use our language. They're changing the language that they use to explain things to further bury what is absolutely true. And even within conservative churches, this is becoming something of an issue because we're not truthful with the way we talk about sin, are we? We begin to use therapeutic language. We begin to play victim of our sin rather than just saying outrightly, as the Bible states, that we are the ones guilty of our sin. And so you hear words like brokenness. God wants to heal us from our brokenness, as if sin is something that has distorted us, and it has. But we're guilty of those things. Like, we are the sin breaker. We are the law breakers. We are the sinners. We're not just mere victims of a sinful world. We are, sinners in and of ourselves. It reminds me of that G.K. Chesterton story that I'm sure all of our listeners have heard. What's wrong with the world? I am. It's me.
Yep.
That is radical and legalistic, even in some of our circles, to say such a thing. No, we need to approach sin as some sort of clinical counseling session, a therapy session, so that we won't offend, but we're bearing the truth, aren't we? I mean, in the long scheme of things, we're bearing the truth when we begin to pull punches and to compromise. And so it's not, it's really easy for us to look out into our culture and say, oh yeah, they're they hate the truth. They're trying to bury the truth, because they hate God, who is true, and they hate his word that is true. Mm-hmm. But we have seen some of those things slipping into churches today. That is a significant problem.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Go ahead, Derek.
Well, I was going to say, it's amazing how the catechism is so well balanced, because we've been talking about, or you guys have been talking about, really hiding the truth, denying the truth, distorting the truth, etc. That's one end of things. The catechism also handles the other end, which is speaking the truth, but in a wrong manner, or using the truth in a wrong manner. So it talks about one of the things forbidden is speaking the truth unseasonably or maliciously to a wrong end, or perverting it to a wrong meaning, or equivocal expressions to the prejudice of truth or justice, speaking untruth. Okay. Mm-hmm. So there's a way of actually speaking true things that's done in a sinful manner.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's also, maybe especially amongst Reformed guys, especially, that is a real temptation, a real fault of ours. There's that. Remember, I didn't grow up in a Reformed household, and so when I first came to Reformed theology, thankfully, I don't know that I was ever I probably was a cage stage Calvinist for maybe a few weeks, but it didn't last very long. But there's that whole cage stage Calvinism thing where predestination and Reformed theology and covenant theology becomes this hammer, right?
Yes.
And you're just beating people down with it.
It's the only tool in your toolbox, and everything is a nail.
That's right. Everything's a nail.
Someone says, I love Jesus, and you're like, no, you don't. Here's why. Like, okay, calm down.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And here's the thing. It's like, predestination is true.
Yes.
But the way we speak about it needs to have, the Westminster Confession, actually, when talking about predestination, calls it a high mystery, and it calls it, and it says that it needs to be handled with care. And
that's right.
And we break the 9th commandment when we don't handle things like that with care. But there's other controversial things out there too, right? That people may have good points, but their method of bringing out those good points violates the 9th commandment. I think, Sean, you can affirm this maybe. I once read a quote from John Knox about you can't antagonize and influence at the same time, or antagonize and persuade at the same time, something like that.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's a true statement, that you can have all the truth on your side, but if you are speaking it unseasonably, or using it to a wrong end, or you're beating people down with it in a way that's not persuasive, you're actually breaking the 9th commandment there. I think that, especially as we have conversations in the PCA around Christian nationalism and other associated topics, both sides, I think, need to remember the 9th commandment, because both sides can be guilty of this error, So, and myself included, right? I've certainly done it on a number of occasions. So I love how the catechism's super balanced and handling both. You don't want to hide the truth or distort the truth. You also don't want to speak the truth unseasonably, right? We need to have Jesus Christ was full of truth and grace, right? And we need to try to, as our best we can by the power of the Holy Spirit, to model that in our own lives, or mimic that which our Savior modeled for us.
I think that's exactly right. I mean, just to give an easy example, like, we ought to be a truth cherishing people, and so the goal in any sort of disagreement is, it should be, right, to bring the other party into a closer proximity and greater appreciation and conformity with the truth. Like, to make it overly simplistic, I see the truth, you don't see the truth, but I want you to see the truth, because our God is a God of truth. I want you to embrace the truth because it's good for you. It's good for everyone. So I want you to see it and embrace it like I do, because this is the truth. That should be the goal. The goal should not be just to beat someone down and humiliate them or embarrass them. I think that's something that comes to mind of what you were just saying, Derek, of I can speak true things with a goal of just
want to win the argument.
I want to win the argument. I want to embarrass you in front of this crowd. I want to humiliate you in front of everybody but I'm saying true things. But my goal isn't to persuade you to come to love truth more or see truth more. It's just to make a fool out of you in the eyes of others because of my own ego or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, and it's not that winning the argument is wrong. We should want to win arguments, right? Like, that's not and I don't mean that in a sinful way, but like, you don't want error to prevail. You don't want falsehood to prevail. So you do want to win the argument.
Yes.
But there is a certain attitude of winning the person, not the argument. Mm-hmm. And if you can win the person, oftentimes you can win the argument, I'm a big fan of I like, not as much as I used to, but I like watching debates, not presidential debates. Those are lame, but watching like Christian versus atheist debates or Christian versus Christian debates. But oftentimes the person who wins the debate is just a better debater, but they're not actually true, right? They're not. I've seen atheists trump Christians in debates, but both emotion, two things rise up in me in my emotions, and one is, man, I really wish we'd won that argument. I wish the Christian would have won that argument. But secondly, I thought to myself, like, man, but the Christian had the truth, but he wasn't skilled at debating. He didn't use it rightly, or whatever the case is. And so again, I just say all that just to say, winning the argument is not bad. We want to win the argument, but we also want to win the person with our arguments as well. And we need to hold fast to that.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, Derek. But before we get too far further into this question, when you brought up this point, I think that we need to backtrack just a little bit, because there was a little phrase that said undue silence in a just cause is a violation of the ninth commandment.
That's right.
And one of the things that we have to wrestle with, it kind of goes back to this debating thing, right? Is when we hear something that is untrue, it is then wrong for us to be silent. Right. So we should not be overbearing. We should not be manipulative. We should not be demeaning when we're arguing for the truth. And so a lot of times people go, well, I'm just not going to say anything.
Yes.
But you remember that, I'm not going to get this right, but you remember that great quote from John Calvin? If a dog barks when his owner is attacked, who am I then to sit silent when my God is, demeaned or defamed, or his name is lied upon? That is true. It's one of those things that we cannot afford as Christians to sit back and let God's truth be completely raked over the coals, and just stay silent. We must speak to those things, because if we do not speak, just notice what the Catechism says. Mm-hmm. If we do not speak, we are concealing the truth.
That's right.
In our minds, we're being more winsome. In our minds, we're, not wanting to fight. In our minds, we struggle with how to do this without being sinfully angry.
Sure.
And so we just say, I'm going to pull back and I'm going to stay completely silent here. But our silence is an act of really affirming the lie that is being told.
Yeah, it's a passive concealment of sorts, isn't
right.
it?
Yep. And so we must speak. Zeal is not forbidden in the scriptures from the heart of the Christian. Zeal is a good thing. Zeal for what is true is absolutely required for the Christian. Now we have to make sure our zeal is rightfully targeted, right? It can't be a zeal, like Derek was saying. It can't, we cannot be zealous so that we win a debate. I mean, that's a false zeal. But we must be zealous for God's truth.
Yeah, it needs to be a channeled zeal, not an
right.
unbridled
That's a
zeal.
better way of putting it.
A well-ordered zeal.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Calvin says that zeal without doctrine is like a sword in the hands of a madman.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to be zealous, but we also need to have good doctrine, good robust theology behind that zeal, a well-ordered zeal that allows us to, think about Jesus Christ, right? Zeal for your house has eaten me up, O Lord, right? He was zealous for the truth. He was zealous for the things of the Lord. This should remind believers that we should have zeal for the things of the truth, but we should also make sure it's a rightly ordered zeal with doctrine to back it up, which means that we need to be in churches which have both zeal and doctrine. It's easy to get sucked into a church that gets you really excited and really fired up, but it really doesn't take you deep into the truth of Scripture. So you're in love with the Jesus you don't know. Yeah. And we don't want that. And we also don't want to be the frozen chosen where we have no experiential religion to go with our doctrine. We want to have both, and that's very important. And so I would encourage our listeners, to hold those two things in connection. Have a heart, experiential religion, zeal for the truth, but know what the truth is. Right? Yes. Don't just be zealous for an idea, but zealous for the truth. What is happening here?
There seems to be some sort of technical interference.
A Chinese spy has entered into this.
I have not. No, sir. Hang on. I swoop into a parking lot. I see one of my friends. He comes over. My Greenville Seminary bumper stickers are a dead giveaway. I just came in here to say I love the 9th commandment. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for your attention to this matter and your stunning contributions to today's discussion. I don't know what we could have done without you. Derek, as we're moving toward a close, I had a thought that you and Matt both prompted in my head as we were focusing on some of these other clauses there, like forgery, right? Faking your signature in a legal agreement, that's a dishonest thing. And then we talked about undue silence. We talked about holding our peace when there's a sin that calls for reproof, right? Because we should love truth, and that means we should love right. And so if we see unjust things happening, they're going to do injury to others or injury to their reputation or injury to the truth. We cannot stay silent. We need to speak up, especially if we have something that's, a matter of evidence. Well, so-and-so, stole this thing. And well, actually, I was there and I saw it happen and I know how it went down and that's not accurate. But boy, if I speak up right now, I'm going to get in trouble with some powerful people and they're not going to like me. Well, too bad. You need to speak up and tell the truth. You have to. You need to set the record straight. You need to love truth and so that justice and righteousness, and so that justice is done, and so that the right thing is done. The other thing that came to my mind was that maliciously to a wrong end, perverting it to a wrong meaning, or in doubtful and equivocal expressions. Right? So insinuating doubt about a matter that you know to be the truth is a violation of the 9th commandment. And what jumped into my mind is that this is an insidious thing, an insidious sin, and it takes us all the way back to Eden, doesn't it? Because that's exactly what the serpent did to Eve, right? When in Genesis 3, Has God indeed said, "You shall not eat of every tree in the garden"? Right? Did God really say, "You shall not eat of every tree in the garden"? And see how he just twists the words ever so subtly, sowing doubt in her mind as to the truthfulness of the matter, as to the truthfulness of what God had said. And the woman replied, "We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden." So she gets this right. "But of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God has said, you shall not eat it." So she corrects him to an extent. No, we can eat of these trees. It was that one that he told us not to eat. But then she adds, right, "Nor shall you touch it, lest you die." And then what's the serpent do? He's sort of wiggled in. He's driven a wedge into her psyche, so to speak, by that insinuation, by that duplicitous, equivocal expression. And then he just comes out with a bold-faced lie, doesn't he? "You shall not surely die." That's just a lie, flat out. "For God knows that in the day you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." So he tries to sow doubt in her mind with that equivocal expression. There's a violation of the ninth commandment. And then he takes this step further with a full, bold-faced lie. "You will not surely die. God was untruthful to you. God was misleading you. I'm telling you the real thing." Flat-out lie, another violation of the ninth commandment. And then Adam ate, and Eve ate, and we've all been in that estate of sin and misery ever since. And so the ninth commandment goes all the way back to ancient Eden, doesn't it? And the consequences of it, and matters of truth, and matters of lying, and matters of promoting honesty, consequences and fallout stemming from the ninth commandment. This goes all the way back to the Garden of Eden. So these are some serious matters here that we've had time to consider, and it's been important. And there's still lots to go. We've only covered maybe the first, third of question 145, because there's lots for us to get into concerning truth and truthfulness. But we've gone on for a while today, so this seems like a reasonable point for us to press pause, and we'll continue the conversation for another day. Unless our Chinese spy from Beijing, who's dropped in and hacked into the show this morning, would you like to add anything before we sign off today, sir?
I think one could say that Satan is the father of lies. I just came up with that, and
Did you now?
I think it works. That's why I'm here, for these valuable contributions to the show.
Well, considering the first 15 minutes of the show and how it was spent, we literally could not have done it without you.
I'm waiting with bated breath to see what on earth you did for the first 15 minutes of the show.
Let's just say the matters of your life are an essential ingredient to the secret sauce that is Larger for Life.
Okay, so this is about as good a time as any. Let's just do this in front of everyone. So what we need to do is the banter, okay? You need to make timestamps for those that want to know my personal life. They can just listen to the first 15 minutes and then, just can the rest of the episode. Or, to the more serious inclined among us, and that don't want to know about my personal life or all of the ninth commandment violations you guys committed against me, no doubt, they can just scroll past that. So have you been doing that, Sean? I just learned, I was today years old when I realized you could do that. You could put chapters, as it were, in podcasts.
I don't know how to do that, and I'm not interested in learning a new skill, but I'll meet you halfway. I'll put in the show notes a time of fun banter up till here, catechism discussion in earnest starts here. I'll put those in the show notes if people want to scroll ahead to minute 14 or whatever it is.
Because when the one episode, when it was 15 minutes at my sartorial expense.
That's right.
Yeah. Let's just say I scrubbed past that.
We did put a little disclaimer in the show notes. I'm sure it's pretty easy to add in chapters, but like I said, I'm a boomer at heart. I'm not interested in learning new skills, but I can type words in the show notes that say, skip to this point. I'll meet you halfway.
Fair.
Well, folks, we hope that you've enjoyed today's discussion, even if it is on a serious matter about truth and lies and truth-bearing. These are essential things for us to think about as the people of God, as image bearers of a God of truth and a God of righteousness. And we're just getting started, so to speak, regarding Question Answer 145. There's lots of important biblical content and fodder for us to consider. So we hope you join us again next week as we continue this discussion on the ninth commandment. It's important for our day and age. There's a lot of areas that it covers. There's a lot of things for us to think about. And so it's good for our discipleship and our sanctification. What a great tool the divines have given us in this larger catechism. What a great resource it is for our Christian living. So we hope that you're enjoying it. We're enjoying the discussion. We hope you're benefiting from it. And we look forward to having you join us next time as we continue the conversation here at Larger for Life. You have been listening to Larger for Life, a podcast on the Westminster Larger Catechism, brought to you by the Blue Ridge Institute and Birmingham Theological Seminary. For more information about this podcast, please visit our website on Podbean at largerforlife.podbean.com, where you can subscribe to the show in the podcast platform of your choice and browse past episodes. You can also follow us on Twitter or Facebook. On Twitter, you can follow us at Larger for Life Podcast, and on Facebook, you can follow us at facebook.com/largerforlife. Be sure to tune in next time and join us again at Larger for Life.